Welcome to Engaging Students Through Google Slide Games. My name is Brad Weiner, and I'm an adaptive physical educator in Maryland. In March of 2020, when schools transitioned into a virtual model, I had to rethink about how I was going to present instruction to my students. One of those avenues that I started to use was Google Slide Games. Now, Google Slide Games, they allow my students to not just engage with the game, but also engage with each other. In other avenues that I was engaging my students, they were not engaging with each other. And that is why I like Google Slide Games so much, because of that social engagement. And that's something that while my students were using that virtual model, that they needed. They needed to engage with their friends, their peers. So Google Slide Games became a great tool for me to use. And throughout this presentation, I'm going to share a couple different games that I created, and you're going to have access to all of my games at the end. But let's get started. So, a little bit more about myself. I got my undergrad from SUNY Cortland. I have a bachelor's in physical education. Then I stayed at SUNY Cortland to receive my master's in adaptive physical education. From there, I moved down to Maryland, where I worked for Prince George's County and Montgomery County as an adaptive physical educator and a general physical educator. I've also engaged with the community, such as my work with Special Olympics and my work with the One World Center of Autism. And I've taken some leadership opportunities through the National Consortium for Physical Education for Individuals with Disabilities and Maryland's Adaptive Physical Education Consortium. A little bit about myself. The outcome that for this session is by the end of the session, you will hopefully reflect upon using Google Slides to engage students using through the virtual or the hybrid model. And you're also going to explore Google Slide Games and analyze use for their student population. Now, my student population, I currently work with students that are kindergarten to age 21 that have multiple and significant disabilities. They have significant support needs. So the games that I've created are for my students. A rationale for creating these games is that Google Slide Games offer students, like I said before, in different learning environments, the opportunity to engage socially in the same game while working specifically on the skills that they need to develop. One tool that really supports me in engaging my students in the game is this free Google Chrome extension. It's called Distraction Free Mode. I'll click the link here. Now you're going to have my whole presentation with all the links, so it'll be easy for you to click all the links as well. But if you come to Distraction Free Mode, right here you see remove from Chrome. Now it currently says remove from Chrome because I already clicked it and I already have it. You will see download from Chrome so that you can put it on your device. Now again, this is free. And the really nice thing about using the distraction free mode is it allows you to interact with the games. As you can see right now, I'm using Google Slides to present to you, and I'm currently in the distraction-free mode. If I exit out of the distraction-free mode, you can now see my slides on the left. You can see that I can manipulate the slides by editing, inserting, formatting, and I can move things around. If I want to go back into distraction-free mode, I can come and click the symbol for distraction-free, And then right here has a box that's gray, and I can click that. And it brings me back into distraction-free mode, which is excellent because we don't really need to see all the other things while we are presenting to our students. Now, I clicked exit before, but if you look here, I can have different types of backgrounds. I like the dark mode because it allows you to see my presentation a little bit better. But if you want, you can have a white background. You can have different colors, right? But I like the dark mode, so I'm going to stick with the dark mode. Before, I said that these games I'm going to show you are games that are specifically made for my students. I know my students as individuals, and that helps me make these games to know what physical activity I want my students to work on. Now, a little bit more about my students. They are working on rudimentary foundational skills. These are skills such as controlling their arm to extend, bringing their arm up, different type of range of motion. They're also working on using their hand to grasp and hold objects. They're working on releasing objects. When I challenge them, they're working on crossing their midline. So a lot of different skills related to the grasping, releasing, engaging with objects. For my students to do this, I also need to bring in a lot of sensory stimulation to stimulate and engage my students. This can be through shakers, through streamers that are visual, or through objects that motivate them. So a lot of different objects. As you can see here, I'm reaching down because I have all my objects that I use really close to me. So you need to create these activities for your students. You have to know what their grade level standard or what their IEP goals are. You have to know their personal likes. You have to know who they are. And as you can see on this page here, your students, when they enter the room, are very complex people. You're a very complex person. I'm a very complex person. People in general are very complex, right? So it's not easy to take one complex person and another complex person, or add that to make 20 complex people, 20 different people, and make one learning environment. But that is our job. So even though it's not easy, we need to do it. And the best way to do it is through pre-planning. If you pre-plan and you know your students and you know your students' capabilities, their interests, and who they are, you can create activities where they can all engage and be successful in an activity. It just takes some time. So Google Slide games. The first Google Slide game that I experimented with was a virtual soccer game. And here it is. Here's the virtual soccer game. Now, I'm gonna talk through the game and how I like to play it, the way that I play it, and then the way that you can play it if you service students that have more mobility than my students. So in this soccer game, and remember, I'm in distraction-free mode, not present mode, which is why I can move the soccer ball. The soccer ball always starts with the red team at number 1. Now, what team are you on? How are you going to divide your students into a team? So we can use something called Wheel of Names. With Wheel of Names, you can make a spinner and design it however you want. Here I have the red and the blue spinning around with just the words. But you are able to put pictures into it, and I'm going to show you a little bit later how you can add pictures. So let's see what team you may be on. I spin the wheel and I say, round and round it goes. Where it stops, nobody knows. You're on the blue team. So remember, I service students with multiple disabilities. A lot of those disabilities are visual impairments. So if I want the student to know that they're on the blue team, I'm going to use my Zoom background and change the color. Now I can be like, you're on the blue team, the blue team. That's my favorite color. You're on the blue team. And if somebody was on the yellow team, I can change it to yellow or orange. I was using the color red for myself because it allows my students that have visual impairment to see me better. The black clothes that I'm wearing against the red background allows my students to see me better. So I'm going to stick with red, and you're on the blue team. So we're playing against each other, and I'm on the red team. The ball starts with me. So now, in order to roll a dice, I sent all my students dice in the beginning of the year, and this actually helped me out. My dice are very specific for my students. As you can see, I chose to buy red dice. The dice is also large so that my students can work on their grasping. If I had gotten small dice, it would have been more challenging for my students to work on their grasping of the object. So I got larger dice so that they could work on that grasping and manipulating of the object. For some of my students that have very tight muscles in their hand, you can put the dice in their hands, and that's an automatic stretch of their hand muscles while it's in their hand, which is very important for my students that have very tight hands, because when their hands are like this and you allow the muscles to stay like that, it becomes a more natural placement for them. So we want to give them that stretch by having that object there. Now, the last thing about the dice is that you can feel, because there are indents for the numbers. So now my students can, with support, feel the numbers and help count and know how many, what the number they got, versus me just saying it or showing a big number, right? Now they can actually feel the numbers on the dice. So it allows them to help count. So here I also have a link. If they forget the dice, sometimes they forget the dice or they don't have it, or for your purposes, if you didn't have dice, we can use this link on YouTube where the dice rolls. Now, what I do for my students that don't have the dice is I work on that communication. My speech pathologist loves me for doing this. I bring my stop picture and I have my students tell me to stop. There are multiple ways that my students are going to tell me to stop. Some have these voice output devices, so they're reaching their arm to press a button. When they press the button, it will say stop. Another way that my students will do it is by showing me independent body movement. Again, my students showing me independent body movement is a challenge for them and something that we work on all the time. It could be turning their head. It could be lifting their arm. For some of them, it could be opening their mouth. And so I look for them, and when they give me some independent movement, I say, oh, you're telling me stop. We're going to stop the dice. Another way that they can tell me to stop is by reaching to touch their stop, because they have these pictures at home also, reaching to touch their stop. Or by simply giving me vocalization. Now, it may not be the word stop, but if they make a noise, that tells me, oh, you're telling me stop. I'm going to stop the dice. There we go. Oh, you got the number 2. 2, that's a small number. The number 2. Let's count. And when we do our counting, we do a physical movement. So it could be counting with our hands, right? We can count 1, 2, or it could be shaking 1, 2. So we do a movement for the number 2. Now, you may choose to have your dice rolling and tell your students, either the whole team or one student at a time, you can say, "All right, red team, you're going to give me 15 jumping jacks. When the team's done with the 15 jumping jacks, I'm going to stop the dice." Or you're going to do 5 push-ups. When the team's done with 5 push-ups, or running in place, you're going to run in place for 30 seconds. After 30 seconds of running in place, we're going to stop the dice. So those are ways that the students can engage in physical activity to tell me to stop the dice. And there we go. We got the number 3. So let's go back to the game. And if we had the number 3, we get to pass the ball to number 3. Now, think of bowling. And in bowling, you have 2 chances to get all your pins down. Well, that's the same here. You have 2 chances. So we pass the ball to number 3, and we come back to the dice, and we ask for our students to tell me to stop. And so I have it going, and now the students can be doing a physical activity. They can be trying to tell me stop, and when they do, we stop the dice. We bring it back to the game, and we say, "Oh, you got the number 3 again, the same number." So let's see here. Now, you can choose to keep the ball at number 3 and just have them continue to dribble, or you can choose to pass the ball by adding 3 plus 3 and 6. And so this is where the team comes together. They either the student that's going or the team needs to choose and then be part of a community and vote on what they're going to do. So do you want to keep the ball with number 3 or do you want to pass it back to 6? Sometimes it's okay to pass the ball back in order to move forward. But maybe we choose to stay at number 3. All right, number 3 is going to keep the ball. Now, after your 2 turns, we're going to select a card to add variable to the game. So we come and we select a card. There are 4 options that you can get. So we're going to draw a card, and we have energized offense. The offense is energized. Roll the dice again to make another pass. Well, that's one card that we can get. Let's check out the other 3 card options. We have turnover. The ball has been turned over to the other team. It never made it to your teammate. The ball goes to the player on the opposing team, closest to the passer. Or shoot the ball. Shoot the ball and try to score a goal by rolling the dice for the numbers 5, 8, 11, or 12. The ball will then go to the number 1 on the opposing team. And the last one is pass. Roll a dice again and make another pass or goal. Now we had energized offense. So we're going to get to do it again. But if we had turnover, now we didn't actually make the pass, but if we had turnover, it would go to the person that was closer. So that would be number 6 is closest, right? If we had tried to make a pass to number 6, number 3 would have stole the ball because they're in the line. If we're trying to shoot the ball, we have to try to score a goal by getting 5, 8, 11, or 12. Now, the numbers in the goal were specifically chosen because of probability. The numbers 5 and 8, probability-wise, have a greater chance of coming up. So that is the reason that 5 and 8 are there. 11 and 12 have a lower level of probability of coming up. So they're there to add a little bit more challenge, but 5 and 8 are there so that goals can occur. And I'm putting them there because I want to make sure that my students have success, feel success, and have the opportunity to score a goal. All right. Now I got energized offense, so I get to roll a dice again. And I roll, and I get the stop for a 2. So now it goes again, where now I'm going to pass the ball. I'm forced to pass the 2, which is good because it's moving the ball up. And I come back, roll the dice again, do my stop, and I got a 5. So now, look, I could either do 5 plus 7 and make a pass, or I can score a goal. That should be an easy answer. And when we score a goal, we get to hear and celebrate. That's what we need to do. Celebrate, right? Yes, you got to celebrate a goal within fashion. So because the red team scored a goal, haha, I get my goal. And then the number 1 on the blue team will start for the next round, and the blue team gets to roll their dice. If at any point we roll the number 1, I like to celebrate that person who got that number 1. I like to get my number 1 fingers out, and I go, "You're number 1. You're number 1. You're number 1. You're number 1. You're number 1." Yes, we got to celebrate our students whenever possible. Celebrating them with the number 1. All right, so that's the way the game of virtual soccer is played. Now, let's see here. All right, I'm going to have to take it out of distraction-free mode so I can move on to the next slide. And also showing you how distraction-free mode works. So there we go. Here is another way that if we have students that are working at different levels, so you may have a student that's working with the dice, right? You may have students that are working with the dice. At the same time, you may have students that have more mobility, are working at higher level skills. And so you may get a ball with some bottles, and they may be working on passing the ball and knocking down the bottles. If they get 5 bottles down, that's a goal, right? If they get 3 bottles down, that's the same as rolling the number 3. So we have 6 bottles, however many they get down, is the number that, as if we roll the dice. If they are rolling or kicking the ball and missing the bottles, that may mean that they need to move a little bit closer to the bottles to be successful. We're looking at success. As they're finding success, we promote them, we encourage them to move a little bit further back and challenge themselves more. So another way to play the game. Now, I can have a student that's kicking the bottles in one environment and then kicking the bottles in another environment, and yet they are still playing the game. I can have a student at home rolling the dice and a student in the gym kicking to knock down the bottles, still playing the same game. And here are my Google Slide games. You're going to have this presentation. You're going to be able to click on the link. And so if I say I want to check out Fitopoly, I can click on that link. And now this will make it so that you can make your own copy. When you make your own copy, now you can manipulate, adapt, change the game however you see fit. You're going to want to change the pictures on the game or put in videos that are for your students and where they're at. What skills are they working on? Again, I made these for my students. So the pictures in the activities are working on the skills that my students need to work on. But you're going to be able to adapt it, modify it, however you need for your students. And that goes for all of them, that you can click it and make it for your own. I already put the template together. Now, if you chose to play it the way that I already have it, that's okay. You can do that as well. So let's look at some of these games. We're not going to have a time to go through all the games, but we'll have an opportunity to go through a couple of them. We already looked at the virtual soccer game. And I'm already in that distraction-free mode, which is why you see the black background around there. You have a spinner option, the rolling of a dice, to choose your team and select a card. I also put a video together to demo how to play the game. So that is the virtual soccer. And then I was telling you about the Fitopoly game. I really wanted to make a game that had to deal with Monopoly because it brings in a lot of skills. It brings in the concept of money. It brings in just a lot of fun. Now I can click on Wheel of Names, and this allows me to choose the character. Before you saw red and blue, right? So I was able to make it red or blue. Here, I was able to upload pictures of the characters. So now if we spin this, we can choose a character that we're going to play with. Now the nice thing with Wheel of Names is that you can pick music to go with it, celebratory music, when it's spinning type music, different things to make it more fun. So here we go. Yeah. And we got the dog. We got the dog, the puppy. All right. So we can close this out. We spun the wheel. Now you'd spin the wheel for as many people as you needed. If you needed to group two people to use the same character, that's all right. I'm happy to work as a team and have somebody participate with me with the dog. Right? So if you have more students than the number of characters, you can group them up. And then we can how to play the game. There are a lot of instructions that you can go through on your own. And then here's the game. Now, one of the things that you see here is a wheel that has numbers. And in this case, when I spin the wheel, I'm not going to use my word stop, but now I'm going to use my word go. And again, this is a word that my speech pathologist is working on with my students, and I give them multiple different ways that they can tell me go. Again, through physical activity, through vocalization, through reaching to press the voice output device, a lot of different ways. And so when we go, now this one doesn't have the fun music, and I chose that. You may not always want the fun music. And we get to number 6. We get to number 6. We come back to our game. We know that we're the dog. So we find the dog. And we're going to move 6 times. Now, again, I can do physical activity. How are we going to do physical activity? Well, we can work on crossing our midline 6 times, counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I can engage my students through movement. I could have done jumping jacks as well. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I get community chest. What fun, what fun. We'll talk about community chest in a moment, but let's say I got a 5 and I landed over here on the blue. Now, for this, I have the option where I can buy this property because nobody owns it. So I can buy this property. If I chose to buy it, you can see on the right-hand side, I start the game with $10. And I can choose, do I have enough money? Yeah, I have enough money. So I'm going to 8 minus 2, 10 minus 2 is 8. And now it's my property. To identify that it's my property, I'm going to come down here. I'm going to take my puppy dog that's in a red box. And I'm going to put my puppy dog there because now everybody knows that that is my property because my puppy dog's there. To buy this property, I need to do the physical activity. Now that physical activity, it looks real small. I can't really see it. So each physical activity is aligned to a slide and it says, give yourself a hug. So I'm going to, oh, that's my favorite thing to do. We all need some good hugs. If you're there watching, give yourself a hug. It feels really nice. Give yourself a hug. It's not just a hug though. I'm working on crossing my midline. You know, I've been talking about that a lot, crossing that midline. And then we go back. Now, if somebody else lands on that property, they need to give me $2 and they have to do that physical activity. I own it, I get the money, and they have to do the physical activity. The community chest, I can come to community chest, I click on it. Let's see what we get when we go to community chest. I'm going to roll or spin again, and then whatever I get here. So if I roll a 4, it's going to be pay $1 for each owned exercise. Oh man, I own one exercise. That means I have to pay $1. That can get expensive. You can clean the equipment and collect $2. So there are different things that you have there. We also have chance cards if you land on chance. Maybe it tells you you roll a 1, and you know anytime somebody rolls a 1, you're number 1. You're number 1. You're number 1. You're number 1. And then it says advance to go and collect $5. Or suffer an injury and go to recovery if you roll a 3. Different chance options. A lot of fun, right? Now, for New York property, there's no exercise there, but if you get New York and Maryland, they're going to pay you $6. So if you only have New York, they'll pay you 3. And if you have New York and Maryland, they'll pay you 6. So that is the Fitopoly game. Another game that I created was Connect 4. For Connect 4, again, you have your spinning wheels for yellow or red. Let's find out what team you're on. And you have your colors. Now what I can do also is if I have a lot of students, I can have my students create a copy of this type of game, and then my students can play each other, right? So they can all, if they're all virtual, they can be playing each other virtually, or I can have it where my virtual students are playing my students at home. If my students are all virtual and playing, now in order to communicate, they need to be challenged to communicate without using their voice because everybody on Zoom can't talk at the same time. So I can challenge them to say, how are you going to tell your teammate or your opposition where you want to put the piece? Maybe they have to find something yellow, or maybe they have to write down the numbers. So they may put, once they're yellow, they may put like, I want number 6, right? But they won't say it. And then they do the physical activity related to where number 6 is. Now remember, my students have physical activities for them. You would put physical activities that you would want your students to do. So if I chose the number 6, I put my token in number 6 and I would put my arms out. I reach them out, get a good stretch. Get a good stretch. And we can say that we do all stretches for 10 seconds and all activities 10 times. Right? So you can tell your students to do that. And that's a good way. When you get 4 in a row, you win. And then you can start again. Now, for my students, they're not picking where they want to put it specifically, but they're rolling their dice or they're spinning the wheel, and that's having me know where it goes. So if they rolled or spun a 4, I would put the dot there. And so that is the game of Connect 4. Then we have a bingo game. Now within bingo, you get to choose if you want to. I usually start with a horizontal line or a vertical line. Then you can do a diagonal. So there are lots of ways that you can play bingo for hours upon hours. I have 8 boards that are created for you. There is a way that you can create more boards if you need more boards. Or again, you can group students. So multiple students, 3 or 4 students could be with board A, 3 or 4 students could be with board B. So multiple students can have a board. You can share out the board so that everybody could be utilizing the same game at the same time. It's just that I'd be on B page when you're on A page. And here's a spinner. With the spinner, I put physical activities because whatever physical activity is spun, that is where we put our smiley face. So if we got, now you also have free. So you always start with a smiley face on the free. And then if we had flying or waving our arms, we can wave our arms up and down. So whatever comes up, you put a smiley face over it, and then you do the physical activity. Again, you adjust it however you want, change the pictures up, and put your own pictures in there. First person to complete the challenge, such as a horizontal line or a diagonal line, would win, and then you can play again. Here's board B, pictures are in a different spot. C, D. You put the pictures in a different spot so that they could all play. And then for the last one, I have all my pictures up here, and it allows me to create another board if I wanted or needed more boards. That is bingo. Now there's one last game I'm going to show you. This one is Reaching for the Stars. It's a board game. I wanted to show you this because this board game was created using a website called Lesson Picks. LessonPix.com. There is a subscription to Lesson Picks, but Lesson Picks offers a lot of nice things. One of the nice things is that it helps you create a game. I pick the pictures I want, the exercises I want, and it automatically puts those pictures into the game that I selected. Now, Lesson Picks also offers you to create communication devices such as first then boards, schedule boards, just picture communication symbols, lots of different ways, a ton more that I even said. So Lesson Picks offers a lot of different things. They also offer what I'm not going to go through, but they offer an opportunity to have your pictures, they're connected with PowerPoint. So you can bring up a PowerPoint presentation and be utilizing Lesson Picks website directly in the PowerPoint, which is nice. But here I selected pictures. They randomly put into boxes, and we select our character, we count the number, and you play a game of slides and ladders to see who can get to the playground first. So if I come to number 3, I go up the ladder. If I'm going around and I come to where I'm at the top of a slide, I slide down the slide. I still do the physical activity. And again, these physical activities were designed for my students. You would create one for your students. But a fun game to play. See who can get to the playground first. I call this Reaching for the Stars. But remember, there are a ton of games. That's not just a small little bit. And I'm constantly creating more games. Constantly creating more games. Now, there are ways that you can create your own games as well through Slide Mania. You can have free Google Slides, or they will download to PowerPoint as well. So a couple of them are the Jungle Game, where they give you the option to go through a board game. Here's one Let's Play. I really like this game because wherever you land on whatever color number you land on, when you click on that color number, it brings you to another slide with a task. Now you put your own task in there and you engage with that task. So that's a great game, a fun game, and you try to see who can get around the board the quickest, right? But you can engage your students with when they get to a color, what is going to be the task? They have deal or no deal, a challenge board. Can you guess who it is? So this is a guessing game. Maybe you have, can you guess who it is? And if you get the answer right, you do a physical activity. If you get the answer wrong, you do a different physical activity. Find the treasure. Which is it? This kind of reminds me of the game show Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? But again, the same concept as can you guess who it is? Let's go to the website. Again, this is a free website that allows you to download Google Slides or a PowerPoint, whatever you're choosing to use. If you go by Educator for Educator, that's where a lot of the games are. Or education, they even have an option for choice games, choice boards and games. They have a lot of different things that you can do, not just that. So if you're looking to create a presentation for your students, you may just choose to use slides from different for presentation purposes as well. Great website to utilize. Now we're coming to the end of the presentation. I appreciate you sitting through and going through this presentation with me. I do want to share with you my website here, which is www.myphysicaleducator.com. And if you ever have any questions, email me at brad.m.weiner@gmail.com. If you have questions about the Google Slides or just want to share your thoughts about the presentation, contact me. I'm around. But let's see my website here. Now, my website has a lot of resources, not just in creating your own resources or Google Slide games, but it talks about adaptive physical education, such as the IEP process, positive behavior management, documents I've created, videos and worksheets. But for now, let's click on resources. Again, when you click on resources, that gives you a link for a lot of other resources. But for this purposes, home activities, number 8. When we went into virtual learning, I started to see a lot of resources that our community was making. And it was hard for me to relocate where those resources were. So what I did is I put those resources I was finding into one location to make it easier to find those resources again. So if you're looking to create instructional tools, here you have develop resources. Slide Mania. That's the website I just showed you. You also have Slide Carnival. Video editing, imaging editing, developing games. If you want to develop and create your own board game, build your own memory game, PowerPoint game show templates, different games that you can create for your students. I talked about one Google Chrome extension, but here are a ton of Google Chrome extensions. They're all free. They all do different things that can support you in education. The last one on the list is that distraction-free mode that I was talking to you about multiple times. I also put some resources that I've created on here, one being the home activities for individuals with multiple disabilities, another website for my students specifically. And if you come to games and scroll down, now you have all the resources I've been creating for them, one being the board and card games. Click on that because that's what we're discussing today. And here are a bunch of games. You had those links in the presentation, so no worries. But as I continue to build these resources, they're going to be on this website. I've already started building other games for my students. So in a little while, I'll put those games up here. But again, thank you for spending your time with me. I appreciate it greatly. I hope that I've been able to provide you a little bit, maybe one nugget or a little bit of information about Google Slides and Google, creating Google Games, utilizing those games with your students and implementing it. And if nothing else, motivating you to just look into Google Slides a little bit more so that you can use them for the purpose of not just working on those physical activities, but engaging your students socially, right? I mean, right now with everything that's going on, we need our students to be working on those social skills and feeling like a community. And Google Slides helps us do that. But once again, thank you for your time and have a great day.
Thank you for attending the 48th Annual Elementary Physical Education Workshop. We're glad you were here.
Please follow us on our social media platforms. EPEW can be found on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube.
Please check out our website for links to more great sessions. Just go to epew-cp.weebly.com and click on the virtual EPEW 2021 tab at the top and scroll down.
EPEW 2021 Educators Assemble would not be possible without the support and dedication from the amazing EPEW committee. The committee has been hard at work for months preparing for this workshop. Thank you to Linda McGee, Barbara Groton, Scott Wilson, Stephanie Sandino, Julie Miller, Jessica Monlux, Kayla Ailman, Shelby Lozano, Andrea Chavez, Scott Townsend, and Cindy Chase.
Thank you for attending EPEW, where our motto is, come to learn, leave as family.